Welcome back to the channel. If you are watching this video, you likely work in higher education, and I'm also willing to guess that you work in student affairs. Well, you're in luck because I'm about to tell you about one of my favorite books and the book that I wish I had when I started my career. And it's called The Strategic Guide to Shaping Your Student Affairs Career by Sonja Ardoin. Now, she is very thorough in this book and she lays this out very well. This is probably one of the most well-organized books that I've ever read, and it really takes the perspective of starting out in student affairs and how you build your career. And it's kind of what I think is the chapters are laid out from sort of basic, beginner to intermediate and advanced of things you need to know and things you need to be aware of as you begin your career. And what I loved is in that first chapter, she talks about what student affairs, what the division looks like, and how it sits with different institutions. She uses actual org charts, which I thought was a great visual aid, because some institutions will have student affairs and academic affairs separate, and then some institutions have actually integrated the two. So she shows you what that looks like. And then she also breaks down each department within student affairs and describes what that department does. So this is very valuable if you are just starting out and you know you want to work in student affairs, but you're not quite sure where you want to start or where you want to go, or also who you could begin to speak to if you are currently in your career. The tone almost kind of takes it as if you had just graduated from graduate school and you're beginning your career. I don't think that's very limiting, because I had been working for a few years, then I went to graduate school while I was working, and I still found a lot of stuff in this book very valuable. And a lot of the stuff that she talks about, I had learned through experience and great supervisors. So if you are just beginning, you have to read this book. This is going to give you everything you need to know. And there's a chapter where she talks about when you start out in student affairs, how you might have sort of like this culture shock. And you're ready to rock. You know, you just got out of graduate school, or you're very enthusiastic. You want to throw your opinion around. You want to talk about all the theories and the research that you discussed in class. But you need to step back and know that you may not have a voice and you may not be included in the projects that you want to participate in. And your supervisor may not even want to mentor you. And so it's about stepping back, learning your role, learning your department, and how you can grow over time. And as you grow, then you can start to insert your thoughts on certain things, or you might be invited to participate in certain projects. So it's not 0 to 100 right when you begin your career. And that's very valuable advice, because I have seen that with new professionals that I have worked with. Is you're very eager, you're very enthusiastic, but also you need to know that you're just starting out. You need to understand the flow and the pace of the work and the culture and what is expected of you as well as the rest of the team before you can start to get going with things. There was a chapter that talked about finding a job in student affairs, which was incredibly valuable, because she even has a section where you break down the job description. And so she talks about, for example, you know, if you come across a description where it says 40% of your time is, you know, advising or guiding students, then you can interpret from that that the majority of your career is expected to be in front of students and working with them directly. And so you can, based on percentages or based on certain descriptions or duties in those descriptions, you can begin to decipher what that job is really going to do and what that is asking of you. So if you're new, it's very valuable because you may want to just jump into any sort of job just to get into student affairs, but you may find that as you begin to interpret some job descriptions, potentially that might not be for you, or it doesn't match your skill set. So it can really help you kind of tailor your job search and really narrow what is going to be an excellent fit for you. There were chapters towards the end, as we get into what I would say is more of the advanced stage, is about professional development and networking. And since I'm kind of into my career already, this was the most valuable portion of the book for me. There was a lot about professional development that kind of hit me that I wasn't aware of, because when in my career with professional development, I just kind of took opportunities as they came to me, or just took some advice from people I worked with as they brought it up. But what Ardoin is saying is you need to be very proactive, and you need to have this laid out, and you need to know exactly where you're going. So my takeaway from the book for me is I've got some homework to do, and I have to get that plan up and rolling and get that laid out. So I found that to be very valuable. And it was, in addition to that, how to map out your career. Where do you want to go from here? And what was very unique about the book, which I've really appreciated, is Ardoin included individual testimonies. So there are a lot of individuals who work in student affairs, and they wrote sections about their careers. And in each chapter, you would read about that. And so you were given multiple perspectives and multiple different paths from people with different backgrounds. And they got to tell you, this is where I started, this is where I wanted to go, or I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go, but people sort of guided me here, or they encouraged me to take advantage of certain opportunities. And I think if you read these and you really reflect and look on how does that apply to my path, you're probably going to find something that resonates with you with one of these individuals. And it's kind of encouraging to see that there are some individuals who are in places where I want to go, and now I have seen their paths because they have shared that with me. And now I can kind of begin to map out that professional development plan and sort of get on the right track. There were interesting things that she mentioned about learning office politics. And I wrote down some notes because this is, I believe, a testament to how thorough and specific Ardoin is and how valuable this information is. And this is stuff I learned through experience. So one of the things she said was always keeping your supervisor informed. So your supervisor can inform their supervisor, and that could be a vice president, and that could be a senior director. It's always transferring that information up and keeping them in the know. Do this if you don't know to already do this. And what she had also mentioned was give people a heads up of things that you're doing. So that might be telling them you're going to work on a project, or you're going to include them in a meeting, or copying them on emails. I have seen this where I have been blindsided myself by direct reports because they don't copy me or they don't tell me, and I find out from someone else who's not part of our department that I'm going to be pulled into a project, or my report is doing something that I did not know they were doing. So again, very, very valuable. Another thing she said is be careful of what you say, to whom you say it, and where you have the conversations. You know that I'm smiling because this is so true, and you more than likely have either A, seen someone do this, or B, you've done this yourself. And I have done both. I've witnessed it and I've done it myself. So as you read this book, listen to everything that she says. And she also talked about choosing your battles wisely. And this is something we always wrestle with because we can be so passionate and enthusiastic about projects or people or the mission that we can sometimes get lost in things. And we want to focus on that one thing, but it might not be the best in the long run. So it really forces you to think strategically. So I loved this. There are appendices as well, and there's one appendix I loved in particular where it had a bank of interview questions. So it would be questions that they ask you. It would be questions that students may ask you if you are in front of a student panel. I believe there was faculty, if your future colleagues and other supervisors are interviewing you, what they may ask. That is so valuable, and those were very accurate interview questions. So please take those seriously if you are embarking on interviews yourself. So I've said it already in this video many times. This is valuable. It's very detailed. It's very thorough. It's very organized. I think anyone who wants to grow their career in student affairs needs to own a copy of this book. So if you didn't know about it, go get it. And I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear if this helped you, if you're familiar with this book, because I personally wasn't. And if you feel that there is any information I mentioned that you thought, ooh, I wish I would have known that when I first started, because I think this can give you a huge advantage if you're just starting out. So as always, I appreciate your time. I'm here to bring you this information. If you do want to see more content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe and that like button, and I will catch you in the next one.